Hey all. It is a beautiful Thursday afternoon here in beautiful Las Vegas Valley. Coming at you live from the College of Southern Nevada. And I promise, a final note on tariffs, the politics, the economics of tariffs. All right, because of I think the events of the last few days have been pretty crazy, right? The stock market wildly gyrating, although mostly trending downwards pretty dramatically, right? Largely in response to Trump's endlessly fluctuating tariff declarations, executive orders, right? First thing to note there institutionally, and this catches a lot of people by surprise, right? Congress has the Article 1 power to set tariffs. Congress, you wouldn't know that from current events, but it's Congress that has that authority vested in them by the Founding Fathers in the year of our Lord 1787. Congress, Article 1. Now, Congress has delegated that authority to the President in cases of emergency, right? So Trump is arguing, right, has declared that there's an economic emergency because we have trade deficits with many different countries. First and foremost, of course, China. Are trade deficits an emergency? It's an interesting legal question. I'd be hard-pressed to see it in that way. In what sense are trade deficits an emergency? Probably in no sense at all. Trade deficits, that might not even be the right term. But trade deficits are not in and of themselves an emergency. Right? We've been running trade deficits with many countries across the globe since the end of World War II. And under those conditions of many trade deficits with many countries, often quite large trade deficits, we have become the world's most affluent country. Okay, we are top dog in the world. We're number one under those conditions. That hardly seems like an emergency. All right, so why are trade deficits not an emergency? Okay, so regularly, people, and this will not shock nor surprise you, I go down to my local grocery store and I purchase grocery items that I attach a certain value to. And I compensate that grocery store for the value of those items, right? They set a price, I agree to that price, I purchase the damn items, done. So guess what? I have a massive trade deficit with my local grocery store. It is a massive deficit. I buy stuff from them and they never buy stuff from me. The bastards, they're cheating me. I've been cheated. Well, no, I haven't been cheated. They're offering me goods in return for a fair price, and we both benefit. Win-win, right? Win-win. That is a trade deficit, but it's not an emergency. In fact, it works really well for the both of us. So think about that, right? Are trade deficits a problem, let alone an emergency? It's hard to argue that. Certainly from America's point of view, it's impossible to argue that cogently, rationally. So that's something to think about. I want you to really think about that. Because that's the whole basis for his unilateral approach to tariffs. Right? Now, Trump has offered at least 3 different rationales for tariffs. Right? Number one, because we need the revenue. Right? Historically, he's right. Going back to the founding of the United States and up to about the early 20th century, we depended upon a lot of our federal revenue from tariffs on imported goods. Okay, and then we created something called the national income tax, and then we no longer needed to rely on tariffs to fuel the federal government. But that's been one of his rationales, right? We need it for revenue. I mean, it is revenue for the federal government, but again, those costs get passed on to the American consumer and American businesses. Right? So in that sense, it does become a tax on businesses and consumers. So it is revenue for the federal government, But an awful lot of that, estimates are as high as 95% of that is paid for by the consumer and businesses. So that's one rationale. Right? And that would suggest we need lots of tariffs. If you think that's smart, it's not. Under that approach, right, we need lots of tariffs all the time for more revenue. You always need more revenue, right? But it's a tax. Rationale number 2, to eliminate trade deficits with other countries. Well, I've already talked about that. Are trade deficits a problem? Is that even the right term? Because it has sort of negative, pejorative connotations. Is that even the right term? Doubtful. It's we're purchasing goods from China because they offer a very nice price and we have lots of consumer demand. He calls them reciprocal tariffs, but they're not reciprocal in any meaningful sense. Right? They're simply designed to eliminate trade deficits. His argument is if there's a trade deficit within a country, they're screwing us. And then number 3, right? So that would imply, right, another sort of regime of tariffs where you say, we're going to do it to eliminate trade deficits. So we're going to put them in place and keep them in place for a very long time until we have a balance of trade. That's insane, but that's the rationale, and that's how you would carry out that regime of tariffs. And you target it, right, towards countries with whom we have a trade deficit. Which is different, right, than simply raising revenue, where you would put it on everybody as high as possible, endlessly, to generate revenue. So different rationales, different regimes of tariffs. And then number 3, right, he argues that I'm using it as leverage to get other things from countries. That if we threaten tariffs against, Ukraine, then Ukraine might strike a deal to give us other things that we want. Maybe they'll agree to take back a lot of their refugees who fled to the United States as a result of the Russian invasion. Right? And maybe that's what we want. If that's what we want, right? More and more immigrants being deported back to their countries of origin, right? Ukraine could offer that. If you cut our tariffs, we will take back a lot of our own people that came over during the war. The war's still ongoing, but we'll take them back. I'm just giving a sort of a made-up example where you use tariffs, right, as leverage to get other things that you want. All right. Well, again, that's a third rationale, and that implies, right, sort of a different regime of tariffs to get other things that we want from various countries, depending on what each country can offer us. So that would entail sort of a unique program of tariffs for each country, designed to leverage negotiations on other issues. And once they satisfy those conditions and we get what we wanted, maybe we reduce or eliminate the tariffs. That's a third regime of tariffs. Each regime of tariffs, right, is different depending on the rationale. Which is it? Trump seems to rotate between the 3 different arguments. We don't know what it is. One day it's this, the next day it's that, and the following day it's something else yet again. There's no coherence here, no clear plan. No way to know when we've achieved our objectives, because it depends on the rationale. Or the fourth one, which is I'm kind of inventing that category for myself, right, is to satisfy Trump's massive and massively fragile ego, right, a regime of tariffs designed to bring other countries to the bargaining table and beg him to lower or eliminate the tariffs, right? What did he say to Senate Republicans the other day? Other countries are kissing my ass to get me to reduce their tariffs. Okay, and that clearly makes him very happy, right? That's probably the core rationale, which, that would be up to Trump then to decide from 1 minute to the next, 1 day to the next, 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next. When do I want my ass kissed? How much do I want it kissed? Has it been too long? Do I need to do it again to get more ass kissing? That's yet a fourth regime of tariffs based on how much his ego needs stroking. So that's stuff to think about here with the Trump administration and tariffs. The other thing I would mention is this thing from a guy named David Ricardo called comparative advantage. I can't remember if I talked about that before or not. This is the idea, right, that over time countries develop expertise in producing certain services or goods, and they develop a specialization that makes them excellent in the production of those goods and services. Right? And each country will have its own unique sort of wheelhouse of producing goods and services, things that they really excel at. Right? The alternative is kind of what Trump sometimes, depending on what day of the week it is and what hour of the day it is, right? Sometimes he suggests that America should become completely self-sufficient, and everything we need in terms of goods and services should all be produced right here in America. So we produce it, we consume it. We're an island, we're a rock. We don't need anybody else. We'll live in splendid isolation. Well, Ricardo says that's a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. He'd be like an individual going, I would like to be a doctor. I would like to be a coal miner. I would like to be an HVAC technician. I would like to be a librarian. I would like to be a finance person. I would like to be a day laborer. I would like to be a house cleaner. I would like to be a dog sitter. I would like to be an accountant. And I can do all of those things really well. You're an idiot, okay? You need to calm down and pick a specialization and excel at that thing. What does it say? Jack of all trades, master of none. Right? That's the problem with this idea of economic self-sufficiency. It fails to take advantage of comparative advantage in a globalized economy. And so I heard an economist talking about this the other day. And look, this is all simplified to make a larger point easily and quickly. Right? He said, look, right, the Italians are really good at making pizza and pasta. The Germans, the Swiss are really good at making watches. And let's say the Germans are really good at making high-end automobiles. Right? What if the Italians had to produce not only their own pizza and pasta, but also their own watches and also their own motor cars? And what if the Germans had to make pasta and watches? And what if the Swiss had to make high-end cars and pasta? No one wants that situation. No one wants that situation, right? The principle of comparative advantage says, let the Swiss do what they do really well. Let the Germans do what they do really well. Let the Italians do what they do really well. And then trade across state lines, state actor lines, nation lines, country lines. Whatever term you want to use there, right? So comparative advantage. So once upon a time, right, the United States had a comparative advantage in producing, tools or clothing. Right? Those used to be major industries here of production. And we sold domestically and we sold globally. We're not that good at those things anymore. Right? Because what does it take to produce clothing? Lots of people in factories sitting down at sewing machines and producing fast fashion at for low wages, and to produce a low cost good that consumers will be interested in. Right? We used to be good at that because we paid low wages, because we weren't that rich yet. We paid low wages. We didn't have good workplace protections. The workplaces were not safe. We didn't have environmental regulations. We didn't have regulations on the quality of the air and the quality of the water. So we were good at it, good at it. But it came at a price, right? Really low wages, unsafe factories, polluted air, polluted water. And now we're doing, in many ways, we've advanced. We've moved up in the world. We're top dog. We pay and expect high wages, good environmental protections, clean air, clean water, safe workplaces, unions, right? All that good stuff. So we could still produce clothing. Number one, it would be hard to find people who wanted to do that. Because producing clothing, man, you're in front of a sewing machine, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. I mean, what American is going to want to do that? Not many. So it's going to be hard to find the workforce. Number one, we already have a labor shortage. How are we going to deal with lots of new factory jobs that are low skill, low wage, and not terribly safe? Lots of workplace injuries with that, right? How's that going to work exactly? And we're going to have to pay really low wages. What's the federal minimum wage right now? $7.25 an hour. How many Americans are going to go work in clothing factories for $7.25 an hour? Right? And you say, well, Carlton, if we paid them $25 an hour and made the workplace safer, it can work. And I'd be like, yeah, that would work. Maybe. You know, you pay high enough wage, right? It becomes more attractive. Well, number one, you're draining labor from other things that also need to be produced. And you're going to produce clothing that's very expensive. Very expensive. Like take now, let's say you buy a t-shirt from Target for $15. Right? You make that in America, it's going to be $60 for the same damn t-shirt. $60, you know? Something like that. It could easily be 4 times as expensive as the stuff that's now made in, let's say, Vietnam or Thailand or China or Vietnam. It'll be multiples more expensive. Is that really what we want to do? Do we want to go back to producing low-value goods? It's a terrible idea. That's no longer in our wheelhouse. What's in our wheelhouse? The production of culture. We're really good at that, aren't we? Music. Who is better than what's the best country in the world for producing music that people desire globally? The United States, my God. Movies, television shows, professional sports. We're elite at that. And those are high-value commodities that can be exported globally for massive profit. Yay, America. That's what we're really good at. We're good at producing, evolving in new technologies right on the cutting edge. That can be exported for handsome profit. Yay, America. We're really good at producing oil and natural gas. Okay? And that we can export. It's a high-value good that we export for handsome profits. Comparative advantage, people. Comparative advantage. Right? Tariffs go against all of that. They go against all of that. It's insanity. It's insanity squared. So these are just some thoughts that cuts a little deeper into a very complex topic. And I touched upon it the other week. This is a deeper cut just because it's become an ever more important issue. What are the tariffs right now on Chinese goods? I think Trump said today they're 145%. 145% tariffs, right? So something that would have cost $100 imported from China would now cost, I believe, if I'm doing the math right, and I might not be, $245 or something close to that. Right? It's got more than double the price. It's going to more than double the price. That's insane. Doesn't do us any good. Doesn't do China any good. Doesn't do the rest of the world any good. It's like lose-lose. I would argue, by and large, now look, globalization comes with its own discontents, its own problems, all sorts of issues of inequality, both within a country and across the globe. So I'm not saying a globalized economy is perfect. It's far from perfect. But if the alternative is economic self-sufficiency for all 200 countries in the world, that's far worse. That is far worse. All right, hang in there, people. The end of the semester approaches. Take care.